Thank you for checking out this InvestorFuse case study. I'm excited to bring you an episode with Mike Cowper, return on investments. He's in the metropolitan Detroit, Michigan area, and he's going to take a deep dive, not only how he got into real estate investing, but he's going to tell you how powerful it is to join mastermind groups. He's in seven-figure flipping. He's going to talk about different exit strategies that he uses. In addition to wholesaling, he does buy, fix, and flips and buy and holds. He actually has 48 units without meeting a tenant, which is pretty impressive. But there are a ton of good nuggets in here. Mindset, hiring. He's going to talk about the different teammates he has, transactions coordinator, assistants, acquisitions, dispositions team. He's going to talk about that, how he quantifies a lead, how he evaluates that lead, how he's able to leverage InvestorFuse for some of his automated follow-ups. So we're going to talk about all that. Thank you again for coming on. I appreciate you guys and enjoy the video. Hello, InvestorFuse community. Thank you for taking the time to watch this. I'm excited for a special guest to come on, Mike Cowper, return on investments. He is an investor in the Metro Detroit, Michigan area, and I will let him dive in a little deeper on an intro to himself. But Mike, thank you for coming on, man. Really appreciate it.
Oh yeah, absolutely, Carlos. Thank you for having me on. Yeah, like you had said, I'm a local investor here in Metro Detroit, Michigan. We don't actually invest in the city of Detroit. It's has some opportunity there, just too volatile, and the margins aren't as wide as we would like them as investors. We primarily focus on sales and marketing channels to fund deals and provide deals for our wholesale business. But we do a fair amount of flipping as well. It's kind of funny, if you would have asked me 3 years ago before I began what a small portion of your business being flips would be, and I'd say I don't know, doing 5 or 10 would be a lot. I mean, we're probably going to do 20 and not even be a big part of our portfolio of deals that we do. So it's kind of funny, as things evolve and change. But yeah, that's a little bit about me here in the local Detroit.
Awesome, man. You mentioned 3 years ago when you were, I guess that's when you were just starting out. Tell me a little bit how you got into real estate, how you got into this market that we're in of wholesaling and assigning properties.
So I had always kind of thought about wanting to be in real estate for a long time. I got out of college, got into sales, sold copy machines, sold tax and accounting information, sold pharmaceuticals, and always kept progressing along that path. But I'd always talked about it with my friends about wanting to get into real estate because I always knew that was the long-term way of building wealth and being able to unplug yourself from the traditional 9 to 5, working for the man or, trading time for dollars. And eventually one night, my best man actually sat me down and goes, "Man, you've been talking about this forever. Why don't you just actually do something?" So that week I found a local REI group, which was September of 2014. I joined a mentorship program that they were offering, and I bought my first rental on November 5th of 2014. So when I look to take action, I really do. I do as much research as I can within reason, because I feel like there's a tipping point where there's enough information out there to be valuable and helpful, but then there's also so much information where you can have too much and then you don't know which path to take. So I always try to find and put myself in a room with people that are further down the road than me. That's been, I think, one of the advantages I've had. I've been fortunate enough to find myself in those rooms and make an effort to get inside of those rooms, whether it be in my sales career, going up through the ladders of that, or when I got into real estate. I always try to find people that are further down the road. So I found some local mentors. I paid them to train me as a part of their mentorship program, and they helped me buy my first rental. So throughout that process, I kind of learned and was focusing on long-term buy and hold, which is my ultimate long-term strategy. We still buy a lot of properties, my partner and I. My partner's Mike Simmons. But what I do now is a lot more tailored towards my everyday skills of sales. But my long-term plan was buy and hold rentals. I learned that from the program that I was in here. And then I started realizing, after buying 2 properties in that first 3 months, that I was unable to find as many deals as I would like to do, because I tried to really ramp up when I take after something. And I saw the advantages of it. So I started really trying to figure out, how do I get out of this as fast as possible? How do I get on my job? So I reached out to different people in the local network, doing different sites, Bigger Pockets, local Facebook pages, things like that, and just trying to find people that were doing direct mail. That is how I got introduced to my partner now, like I said, Mike Simmons. And during that process, he was gracious enough to give me some of his time, explain to me what he was doing. He was a long-term flipper. he started realizing the same thing, that the MLS was very competitive. So he started doing direct mail to homeowners, found a few more than he could handle as a flipper, and started wholesaling them. Well, he kind of had his aha moment there about, oh, wow, this is kind of nice. I get most of the profit that I would make on a flip, but I take less risk. I don't have to do send out mailers. As we grow and scale, we realize that that's not as simple as that, but that's the basic, template there. Send out mail, get people that want to sell their house, and then go and buy it from them. So he was at a point where he was looking at potentially increasing the amount of mail he did, but he's not a natural salesperson. He's good at it. He can do it if he needs to, but that's not his natural ability. So I offered to work for him for free to learn more about the flipping, the wholesaling, everything there was, because it seemed to really align with my skill set and my experiences. And he was also then again gracious enough to pay me for my efforts. So after working together for a little while, and that's why I still had a job, I luckily in sales, many of you are, realize that you have pretty flexible schedules, especially if you're in outside sales. So I could still do my job and do this with him on the side. So I started going on appointments, starting to answering the phones, started converting the deals. He would always take the deals after I got them. He had the network of buyers, at least at the point, which was large for us then. It was like, 15 or 20 guys that he knew from his flipping experience, and he would just go sell to them. As we kept getting more and more deals, he and I had meetings regularly, and eventually one of the times, a few months in, maybe 6 months in, asked me, what was my long-term goal? And basically I told him, look, I'm not an employee forever. And I'm not saying it's today. I'm not saying it's tomorrow. I'm not even saying it's something I'm considering in the near future, but one day I'm going to want to do this myself. So we just started discussing that and decided it made more sense for us to join forces rather than, ultimately become competitors or, fishing in the same pond. And the only way that would have made it sense to both of us is we couldn't just be 1 + 1 = 2. We had to be exponentially better. So at first, I think he was doing, maybe a deal a month. When I came on, we started getting to that 3 to 5 range. And, after our first year of partnership, we had about $300,000 in assignment fees. So for those of you who, if you aren't sure, basically assignment fee is we get a contract and we sell that contract to another investor without ever taking ownership. The nice thing now as we've grown is we end up buying a lot of them. We might double close them. We might actually do the flip ourselves. So it gives us a lot more exit strategies, but that's really what the real wholesaling is you grab a contract, you get under contract to purchase, and then you try and find another buyer that might have a better skill set for that or more interest in that property than you might and sell it to them for a profit. I feel like I'm going a little bit long. Is there anything you want to interject?
No, that's good. I'm glad you broke down exactly like your definition of the assignment there. No, that's perfect. Absolutely keep going. And yeah, that's interesting. When you have multiple exit strategies and it sounds like you and your partner both bring different skill sets to the table, that really helps when you send out this marketing. You can analyze a lead, see what you can do with it. You can kind of cherry pick if it works for you and take it down yourself, or you can wholesale that off to your network of buyers.
Yeah, the real big advantage is here in Metro Detroit, like I said, we don't go in the city, but we have a very dynamic market. We market to, we have 3.5 million people outside of the city of Detroit, because we have 3 large counties, and we market to all of those. So we've got 150, 200,000 people that we market to regularly. And there's different dynamics. There's some high-end flip areas. There's some great buy and hold areas. And there's some kind of right in the middle areas. So it's nice. We have a very diverse ecosystem here. And we basically can almost have 3 exit strategies on any given property. We can be a landlord ourselves. Mike and myself could buy it ourselves for our own portfolio. Our business could buy it as a long-term rental play. We can flip it ourselves, or we can sell it to a landlord or a flipper as a wholesale. So, having those 3 different exit strategies really help. Here locally, the 1 to 2% rule, you can get that all day. Mm-hmm. It's awesome. And we've got some great property managers that we utilize, because I'm a big fan of working on the business and focusing on key strengths rather than trying to shore up weaknesses. And I have never met a tenant, and I never plan on meeting a single tenant of mine if I can ever avoid it.
That's awesome.
Unless I bump into them at a supermarket and I don't know.
That's awesome. So you have how many rentals in your business or you and Mike's business without ever talking to a tenant? That's awesome to hear. I love that.
So Mike actually started off doing some of the rentals himself. I turned him onto a property manager that I've been using as well, and he started siphoning those off as they turned over. So he's met a few more tenants than I have. I've met 0. I've got 48 doors. I don't know how many Mike has. I know he's over 20. Part of mine is an apartment building that I'm a part owner of, so that's kind of accounts for a fair portion of those doors. And yeah, I just kind of always found, as part of when I was getting mentored in the very, very beginning, is be good at what you're good at and let someone else collect rent. So I've done that, and I don't have to chase them down. I don't know all the eviction laws or 7-day notice laws and all that stuff. So I have really been able and fortunate to, like I said, find the right people to show me the right way. I heard a quote somewhere is, you always learn from mistakes, but they don't have to be yours.
Yeah, so, man, some great quotes you're dropping here. I love it.
I love that quote because I don't want to make any mistakes. I mean, obviously everybody does, and we all have, but I want to avoid the ones that don't need to be made. I want to make a mistake on some new implementation or some new strategy that might be creative, that could be the next big thing, versus, well, what mail piece do I send, or how often do I send it, or what list should I send to? Those types of things that have already been done and pretty well proven. So after I met Mike, we became partners. We did about $300,000 that first year in assignments. And then, once again, we were trying to figure out, how do we get bigger? How do we scale faster? Because at that point in time, it was just him and I. Mike had known Justin Williams through his podcast, and Mike has a podcast, Just Start Real Estate. And they had been connected by John Lee Dumas, the Entrepreneur on Fire guy.
JLD.
Yeah. So yeah, he kind of, they were in the Podcasters Paradise, I think, together, and they got connected, and they'd always known each other. Mike had helped Justin out with some of his, forum groups and, beginner level coaching, things to help people get their feet off the ground, the house flipping formula. But he introduced a new program called 7-Figure Flipping. And essentially what the goal was is him and Andy McFarland, humongous wholesaler out of Utah, and he's in a few other markets now. And then Justin was flipping about 150 a year remotely without having much work in his business. So we're like, okay, these people are ahead of us. So we decided to make the investment, which was huge at the time, like 25 grand. And we made that investment to join the group. But from joining that group to literally 1 year later, we grew our business to $1 million a year in profits. In gross revenue. So during that time, we learned how to become more efficient at what we did. We didn't have to do everything. Even though we weren't swinging hammers, we were hiring contractors and stuff like that, we were still answering the phones. We were still managing our CRM. We were still trying to find buyers. We were out there showing the houses ourselves. We were doing the title work. It was a nightmare. And what they told us was, look, you just got to be able to expand. It was kind of started looking more like a business building than in real estate. We talk a lot of real estate, but also it's how do we scale our business so we can pull ourselves out and work on higher value tasks? Because every time I take a phone call, I'm basically paying myself $10 to $12 an hour.
Right.
And my value is higher than that now. There's a time when that was a great value for me, but now I've learned and done enough things where that I'm worth more than that these days. So we started hiring people. The first person we hired was our transaction coordinator. That was the thing we hated the most. It takes the most time. It's crucial, but it doesn't add value. It doesn't make you more money. All it does is prevent you from losing money and keeping deals together. And a lot of it's just runner work, right? You're grabbing paperwork from this buyer. You're grabbing paperwork from this seller, making sure the title company's doing their job, reviewing the documents to make sure they're not right, showing up at closing just to make sure nothing weird happens. Mm-hmm. So that's a lot of low value time. So we hired a transaction coordinator that could take that off our plates. Then the next person we hired was a phone person, because I got too busy from our marketing that I couldn't be reliable. I wasn't reliable enough to be able to answer the phone live or call them back in a reasonable amount of time and do my follow-ups because I was going on appointments. And appointments always take priority. But if you go on that cycle, appointments take priority, phones fall off, you start doing this. And we don't want that. We don't want a roller coaster business unless it's doing this on the way up. It's okay to go up and down a little bit, but I always want our averages going higher and higher and higher. So we hired a phone person so they could answer the phones live and do all the follow-ups that were not appointment related. So for some reason we missed a call or someone said, call me back later. They managed that. And then I would just focus on going on the appointments. After a while, we started, learning, okay, well, I can't go on all the appointments if we want to keep going on marketing and, keep growing the business. So then we started hiring acquisitions people. We had tested doing a few people at the same time. Right now, we currently only have one. And I kind of handle a little bit of overflow myself. One of the lessons we learned is we tried hiring too fast and not following a good process and learning proper ways of hiring, managing, educating, and training our people. So we had a fair amount of turnover this past year when we were really trying to be aggressive in our growth. So what we found out is, you always hear it, but it's hard. Sometimes, at least hard heads like me and Mike, slow to hire, quick to fire. You hear everybody say it, but sometimes it's hard to do because you don't know when you're being slow or fast until you've done it maybe a few times the wrong way, or you have someone that kind of helps you learn that. So I've really dug into learning on more of the managerial side. I'm nowhere near an expert yet, but that's kind of what my focus has been, is learning how to hire people, ask the right questions, how to train them, how to give them the right track, how do I benchmark them, and ensure that I'm giving them everything they need. Because at the end of the day, if someone fails, it's my fault. Either I hired the wrong person or I didn't educate and train them the right way. So, end of the day, fingers always point back to the owner. But yeah, so we joined the group and they kind of showed us how to do that. We hired the phone person, the transaction, the acquisitions manager. Then ultimately we brought on a dispositions manager. And that's the person that once we have a property under contract, they evaluate the deal for all the different exit strategies. We market every deal out to everybody. We don't have one of those VIP lists and things like that people like to do, because I am a capitalist and my partner's a capitalist. We want to make the most we can make on every single deal, weighing in all the pros and cons. So if someone says they can pay $100,000 more than the next guy, but we know they flaked out 3 times, that weighs into our decision. So when we make that decision on who to sell to, if we even want to sell it. When I was telling you about those multiple exit strategies earlier, when we have multiple exit strategies, we have more leverage too over our buyers. It's hard for them to beat us up on price sometimes, because we'll just do it ourselves if we want to. If they're not going to give us enough that makes us feel comfortable wholesale, no, we'll say, okay, thank you for your offers, everybody. We decided to keep it ourselves. And we try not to do that too often unless it's just such a significant difference that we can make flipping it versus wholesaling it or keeping it as a long-term rental play. So that gives us a little bit more power in terms of negotiation, not to try and make it a power move one way or the other, but it gives us more of that negotiation leverage that we don't have to sell this deal to make it work. We can do other things and still monetize it, and usually monetize it better. So after we hired the dispositions person, oh, I'm sorry, looks like you want to say something. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was good.
Oh, okay.
I was good. I was just, in my head, I was thinking that other wholesalers in your community, like Metro Detroit, you have so much more power over them if someone is just wholesaling as their only exit strategy versus someone that could take it down themselves. I mean, that's just infinitely more powerful than, your competition out there.
Yeah, I mean, and we've been told, at times we might pay higher than the next guy, and we don't ever try to overpay. We run our numbers and our calculations, but I think our numbers are a little bit more tuned in to what we can make. A lot of people do the 70% minus rehab. We happen to know what our flippers in our market typically want to make in terms of, the first $100,000, they usually want to make 20%. Everything over that, they want to make about a 15% return minus repairs and, agent fees and holding costs. Mm-hmm. So we've kind of made out some custom calculators that we can maybe be more in tune with exactly what that max allowable offer is. And then always still trying to negotiate the best deal we can, because whatever we can negotiate beyond what they'll pay is what our profit margin is in terms of a wholesale. And at our hearts, we want to wholesale everything. We don't really want to flip if we don't have to. As a salesperson, I like to run through a lot of deals. I like to push through a lot of different opportunities and help a lot of people. If a truly good wholesale deal takes place, it means we've solved the seller's problem, we've solved a buyer's problem, and we've made money in the middle. So that's a triple win, and I think that is really when a good deal takes place. Is seller's happy, buyer's happy, we're happy.
Absolutely.
And I think, sometimes that gets lost at times, and sometimes it doesn't always shake out that way. But that's what our intent and our attempts are always for in our business. So the last piece of the puzzles that we've been hiring recently is we brought on a assistant for our disposition team, because our sales team has been crushing it. And they got so far behind with title companies and things like that, that we had to bring on an assistant to help coordinate some of the paperwork, workflow, and things like that, kind of split the tasks up a little bit. And then we also just brought on a sales assistant. And with those two people, what they're doing for the sales side is our acquisitions manager is just out there crushing it for us right now. So one of his strengths or weaknesses is he doesn't always like to put his notes in the CRM. Mm-hmm. Using Podio.
It's a lot of salespeople.
Yeah, I'm a unique salesperson where I live by my notes, but I know many don't. So basically, we set up a system where he just sends a WhatsApp voice message immediately following any appointment to the sales assistant, and they enter the notes for him. That way, it's there in real time. If that person calls back in, our lead manager answering the phones is able to address any questions they have, answer any problems they might have about it, because there's clear notes in there. Or once it gets to the next phase of the deal, if it somehow falls out or they start to get shaky, we have a big history of what we've already talked about done with them. So we can always rely back on that. Like, hey, you told me this, this, and this, and we saw this, this, and this. So what's going on? It holds them, everybody, more accountable when there's good notes and details of a system followed. And the one thing that I was kind of talking more about our team, but during that entire growth period, for the most part, I was personally managing Podio. And I got pretty decent at it, but I'm not a coder, so I don't know how to write any of the complex codes and things like that once you start utilizing GlobiFlow. And if you know what that is, I'm sorry. You guys should use InvestorFuse because it's way, way easier not having to know all of that stuff. But essentially, I built out a Podio platform based on what I saw. It was literally like 2 apps, I think they're called. I haven't built one in a while, so I can't remember exactly. But basically 2 little apps that one was for leads and one was for dispositions. And they were like a mile long. And then I had all these flows that I tried to create and automations that worked for a while, and then paid a consultant to do some of the extra things to try and make sure we don't get duplicate leads from the same person calling in 9 times in a row. And so we started doing all that. It started to work pretty well on my own. But anytime anything ever went wrong, I had to go, uh-oh, what's going on here? How do I fix this? And I had no idea to do it. So either I had to go find that consultant and say, hey, look, here's what's going on. Fix it, and I'll pay you however, I can't remember how many bucks an hour. It was expensive. But then they'd have to go back in there on their time when they could make time for it and try and correct it. And all the meantime, our system's not working. So finally, I cried uncle. I called up Bill Allen. I'm like, look, I know you've been using InvestorFuse for a while. And like any CRM, right? There's no CRM that's going to be perfect. You know, all the other systems out there, they work well, and you can create however you need to use them. But there's no one size fits all, unfortunately. But this system is really the best thing for us, especially at this point in time, because it manages our leads. We don't have the duplicates. I know they're being accounted for. It gives clear tasks to everybody on the sales process. I love the way it kind of actually sections things off. At first, it was a little bit of a learning curve because we had that one big silo for everything. But you know, I love the fact that it silos off seller lead, properties, transactions, dispositions, or deal marketing. So I like that it's all in their own silo. So if I want to find specific information related to a certain part of the process, I can go right to that. And I know it's working through that entire process. And then just the fact that I don't have to go back in the back end and actually figure out what's going wrong. I send an email to support if something's going wrong, or if I can't figure out how to do something, and I get a response very quickly. So it is basically taking the IT burden off of me. And to be honest, one of the biggest things that I don't know if you guys offer or talk about it too much is the automated follow-up, the long-term follow-up systems that you guys have in there. Since we started using that and transferring some of our old leads, that we had in our previous system over and actually putting them on that, we're getting 4 appointments a week just on the passive text email sequencers. I mean, we're converting deals from deals that, they weren't ever dead, but we just were not actively working them anymore. It was kind of one of those things, we'll get to it when we get to it. But this allowed us to basically take that off of our plate and actively engage with previous people that have reached out to us so they have some interest level in selling, and just stay engaged with them without taking up anybody on our team's time. And when they reply, it sends them a task. They just go and start working it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah, I love that you're getting 3-4 appointments just from the follow-up sequencer. And that's like this is what I talk about a lot when I'm talking about InvestorFuse. That's good for any sales business. Like, I bought a car last February, almost a year ago, and I was looking at different cars, different Acuras and stuff, and I'm still getting emails from dealerships that are saying, "Are you still interested in this Acura?" And it's like annoying, but it's a great way to stay on top of that sales lead or that prospect. So that's awesome that you're using that.
Well, the thing is, it's annoying until it's not.
Right?
So say your Acura blows up, and then you get that email. Oh, hey, yeah, these guys stayed in touch with me. Let me give them a buzz, see what they got. That's the thing, is it's annoying. And the people that get annoyed to enough where they ask us to stop, we stop. But if they say not interested right now, perfect. You're still on the sequencer. You didn't ask me to stop. And that's my sales background. I keep going until you tell me directly, I do not want to communicate with you anymore. All right, perfect. We'll take you off. Is there any reason why?
Yeah, and this business too, like, timing is everything. So much, like, you need to be in contact with that seller at the right time. And those drip campaigns, the follow-up sequencer, allows you just with 2 clicks to set up a programmed set of touches for 1.5 years, 2 years. So you're constantly getting in touch with them. Whenever they get back to you and it's the right time to sell, your team has a task to follow up with them and get these 3-4 appointments a week, which is awesome.
Yeah, it's really great. I like I said, I'm really happy with the product. And, obviously, like I said, there's always tweaks here and there and, issues, but that's going to be anything, right? Nothing's perfect. And you aren't building InvestorFuse for return on investments. You're building it for a community of investors who have different needs. So you've got to be broad enough that it captures all of that, but also specific enough that it does what everybody needs it to do. At least, that 80-20 principle. Yeah,
absolutely. Alex Pardo, he has a podcast. And last week I heard him, he had a podcast on CRMs, and I loved how he described it. because he said a CRM itself isn't going to determine whether you and your team are successful in this business. Like, you need to have people that know sales, negotiation, you need to be doing marketing, stuff like that. What a CRM, and he listed InvestorFuse, what a CRM like InvestorFuse is going to be able to do is it's going to give you a way better chance at being organized and staying streamlined with all your leads. And then it also gives you a chance to experience a compound effect. So 1, 2, 3 months down the road, as you and your team as a habit put these leads onto follow-up sequences, you're going to experience that compound effect of more appointments, more people asking for offers, more deals under contract. And it's going to allow you to scale in a more organized fashion. So some people like I'm talking to, they think like, oh, I'll get a CRM. It's going to, I'm not doing any deals right now. It's going to do all these deals for me. It's going to negotiate for me. That is not what a CRM does.
No, it's a customer tracking tool, right? It's where you silo your information from that person. And imagine how much more professional you look when you talk to someone 6 months ago and they call back in and they go, oh yeah, hey, how's your kid doing? Or how's this situation? What's changed since the last time we spoke? Oh, these guys are on it. Because if you put, well, once again, it goes to how much you're utilizing the tool and how well you're good about documenting things. But if you documented that call or that appointment you visited them on, and they call you in 6 months and you've got all the information, you're able to pull it up in seconds, you're much more credible than the next guy they called that they got a postcard from. So, that's the thing. It helps give you a firmer foundation to close deals.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one thing I like about the communication log that I touch on too. Like on a webinar last week, I mentioned it, is that the communication log inside the seller lead, like the seller's profile, it automatically will update each touch that you had, whether it was like a text, email, slide broadcast, whatever. And I think that's powerful for rapport building. So if you talk to a seller 4 or 5 months down the line, you could say, oh yeah, we spoke on December 1st and November 13th, if you remember. And that's going to give you a lot more credibility and help you build rapport with that seller for each one that you're following up with.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Awesome, man. I want to touch base or just backtrack for a second too on a good nugget that you had, because it seems like, I hate to be stereotypical here, but it seems like a lot of outside salespeople don't like to go inside the CRM and update notes. The mobile app isn't as friendly as if you're on your laptop, of course. But that was a good nugget for WhatsApp, where they can just buzz into, if you have like a lead manager, office type manager, that's going to be the most efficient way. I also recommend Voxer. I'll put that in the video. I'll put a lot of the quotes and stuff and tools in the description here. But WhatsApp and Voxer, highly recommend that for you guys, for you operators out there. Have your outside salespeople buzz in, just say if they made an offer, what the status was, repairs, anything, and then have your person in office update the CRM. Thank you for that nugget, Mike. That's a awesome tip there.
Yeah, and I know it's not an InvestorFuse issue; it's a Podio issue. But for some reason, like half the time you try and log a note from your phone, it doesn't save. And that's a recurring problem on our teams. They try to log the notes right on the road in their cell phone, and for some reason or another, it doesn't always save the way you expect it to. So, and I know it's not you; it's more of the system, Podio itself. But this has helped us work on that. And the point about Voxer or WhatsApp, the nice thing with that too is it can kind of keep communication going. So you can get a sales team all on one channel and just communicate wins, losses, challenges, things like that. So they're all kind of in constant communication if you don't have like a head base. And at the same point, your acquisition people should be not in the office, because if they're in the office, they're not on appointments closing deals.
Exactly. One thing too I wanted to backtrack on, I'm thinking these are just kind of questions I think like the community would want to hear. Your dispositions team, I'm curious. You have a dispositions person and also a assistant for the dispositions person.
Yeah, so we have a dispositions manager, a transaction coordinator, and then an assistant that helps them both.
Okay, awesome. So my question is, let's say an opportunity lead prospect comes into your guys' funnel, comes into InvestorFuse. Who is actually, and this may be more than one person, whom is evaluating that deal? You said it's the dispositions person, evaluating that deal and seeing what the exit strategy is. Is that just the one dispositions person, or is that multiple people?
Yeah, so the first evaluation, so let me back it up a hair then. So our acquisitions manager analyzes every deal before they go on the appointment. So they should have some notes in there. Then once they put it under contract, the disposition manager evaluates it himself as well. He rechecks ARV. He looks at the pictures, because then he can have a more detailed understanding of the renovation costs. And we try to do a video walkthrough of all the properties that we put under contract as well. So he'll look at all of that information and then come up with the exit strategy. Okay, what can we make if we wholesale it? What can we make if we wholetail it? Wholetail, what we do is basically like carpet and paint. It's like grandma's house. It'll pass all your inspections, but it's kind of dated, but we'll just give it like, lipstick on a pig type of thing. or if we want to do a full-on flip renovation. So, that's gutting the place, new kitchen, bathrooms, everything. So he looks at it from those 3 different angles and then puts together a marketing plan that he basically looks at, okay, I'm going to send it out this day. I'm going to have a reduction this day if we don't get any interest, or I'm going to put it in the MLS at this point. So he basically outlines the life cycle of what that lead is going to look like for the duration of the contract. And we try to have every contract vetted out in the first 2 weeks because I don't want to put anybody in a bad spot, especially a seller. And we try to be very clear about that. If we get it at a higher contract price than we expected or wanted to, we'll usually try and work with the sellers on that. But we let them know that this might not work out based on the feedback we get from our partners. So we try to vet that out in the first 2 weeks, and he puts together a life cycle. Once we know we've gotten interest and that we're going to move forward with it, then he kicks that back to the transaction coordinator, who will take that information to title, start the process going with them. We can't send every deal over because we kind of have so many that we swamp our title companies a little bit that we don't want to put it over there until we know it's a pretty solid chance of it closing. Things happen, sellers flake, buyers flake occasionally, but for the most part, we don't send a title until we have a pretty good idea that it's a good deal. And then during that process, our assistant does a lot of the running around now. So the transaction coordinator deals a lot with the title company, the buyer, and the seller directly. And then the assistant does like running for actual documents, notarizing things, sitting in on closings, going getting things recorded with the county, that kind of stuff that takes up time but doesn't add a whole lot of exponential value. And then she also just kind of helps with Mike on the entire disposition side as his little bit of personal assistant when there's not she's not swamped.
Right. That's like I'm thinking of 2 other InvestorFuse users. So that's like what Scott Bauer refers to as green time and brown time. So that brown time would be like the TC or one of the assistants going to closings or running around getting stuff documented with the county, stuff like that. That's where you're going to be making money because it's helping monetize and progress a deal, but it's not green time where it could be like investing in 7-figure flipping or networking with buyers, going to a landlord meetup, something like that. We're going to meet potential buyers. So that's cool. And then I'm also thinking of Fernando Angelucci. I did a case study with. He's in Chicago. And the reason I was asking about your dispositions, like when a lead comes through your guys' InvestorFuse pipeline, is he has a really sweet spreadsheet for analyzing deals and what his maximum allowable offer could be. And he has a few different parallels on that. So he has grade of neighborhood, like A, B, C, D. He's in Chicago. And then he also has what the exit strategy is, like buy and hold, wholesale, like you were mentioning, or wholesale. So he has a really intricate Excel spreadsheet that I was really impressed by, where he can type in like what it is, what the exit strategy is, and he kind of does that himself. So he can see like what the maximum allowable offer will be, and it's always different depending on the exit strategy, which is really cool.
Yeah, I actually recently just revamped my calculators for our acquisitions team because I kind of handle more of our sales side of the equation. My partner Mike handles more of the disposition and actual marketing of the mail pieces and whatnot. But I had individual calculators for landlord, flipper, wholesale, us flip. And then my acquisitions manager like, well, I just copy and pasted those all into one file. I'm like, oh, man, I don't know why I didn't think of that. So I actually have one calculator. So all you have to do is put an ARV, expected renovations, and then what we want to make as an assignment, and it spits out the max allowable offer in all 3 exit strategies.
Okay, that's sweet. That's definitely sweet. Yeah, it's like you have a it's almost like you have an evaluation 1, evaluation 2, 2-step process with your acquisitions team first analyzing it before they actually go to the property, and then eval 2 with like your disposition side. So that's really cool.
Yeah, it's a great check and balance, and it helps us have more coaching opportunities, right? If the ARV for acquisitions and our dispositions off by $100,000, well, somebody's wrong. So let's sit down and figure out who did what wrong and why, so we can correct it. And the more and more they're right there together. I mean, $5 or $10,000 isn't the end of the world because there are some subjectivity and art to running a comp. It's not just black and white. Otherwise, you'd have a calculator that just spits it out for you. So still appraise things like that. So it's not an exact science, but if they're way far off, we need to sit down and figure out why, because anyone in our market that's a good investor, I can probably be within $5 or $10,000 of whatever their ARV is, and we can come about it completely different ways.
Absolutely. So we touched on your team structure here, and as you were building that, is this your current team structure? Do you have any other teammates you want to mention?
We actually have a bookkeeper, especially now that it's year end. We have a bookkeeper. They actually have a bookkeeping business, REI Books Online. If anyone needs one, they're awesome. That was actually one of the hires I forgot to mention because they do so good that I never have to think about it anymore, that it's almost like they're not on our team because they don't come into the office. They just kind of do their own thing. We send them receipts and whatever, and they make sure all of our balances are complete. But yeah, we have a bookkeeper. That way we know, okay, we're making literally this amount of money. It's not just the assignment fee, because maybe we went and paid for a recording document. That's got to come out of the profits somewhere of that deal, because all of our people are incentivized based on the profits of the deal. So we want to have it in a way where we know to the dollar what each deal is worth. We don't, tackle our team for marketing, overhead, and things like that. But if it's a property specific expense, that comes out before they get paid on the proceeds. So yeah, we do have a bookkeeper. We've got the dispositions, transactions, acquisitions, lead manager, sales assistant, but she's also doing cold calls right now. She's testing that for us. It's her second week, so I can't really give good data about that, but it seems to be overwhelming that that's a decent avenue that people are getting success with. So I kind of started off with a really crummy list that I knew wasn't going to produce, so she can kind of get the jitters out of the way. And then when you give her a more reliable list, my thought process, same with sales and phones, is I want a lot of at-bats at first, right? Think of it as batting practice. That way, when that sweet fastball comes right down the middle, you can crush it.
Right. That's awesome. Yeah, cold calling has become extremely popular here these last 2 quarters or so. And that's the thing with mail. I want to kind of dive in. This is a good segue into marketing, but thinking of it from a high level, it's like cold calling. You get a list with whatever parameters you want in the Metro Detroit area, and you're essentially having this cold calling employee, this lady, call these people directly. I'm assuming you're using some type of skip tracing software. You're calling these people directly, as opposed to sending direct mail, where you're getting anywhere national average from maybe like 0.5% to close to 1% response rate. So those numbers are like a little staggering. Correct me if I'm wrong for your market. I don't know, and you can touch on your response rate too for mail. As we segue, I was going to ask you what other marketing plays you're doing too, but
yeah. So I think our response rate is like 1 to 1.5%.
That's really good then.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, we track everyone that responds though. So, even the people that call us and say, they're going to chop my head off with a machete, that counts. Literally, that's been happening before. But yeah, so we're getting about that response. So our big marketing channels are direct mail. We just use the cheap little yellow letter.
Yeah.
We don't do yellow postcard. We don't do letters. Our thought process is, I want to show up in front of you when you want to sell. I could have the fanciest letter in the world. If you're not interested in selling at this point in time, it doesn't matter.
Exactly.
But if that postcard comes across your desk when your wife just served you papers that you're getting a divorce tomorrow and your dog died and you're ready to leave, my postcard is going to turn you, give us a call. So we like to have more touches than pay more in expenses. Now there are probably some specific lists that letters work better for, like probate and things like that, where it's more of a delicate situation. But we've got a lot of deals probate through our yellow letters that we just don't actually go after on purpose. So we do a lot of postcard mailing. We do a lot of online advertising, pay-per-click services and things like that. We're just testing the cold calling. We took a break from bandit signs for a little while, but we're going to consider revamping that. We actually lost money the previous year using bandit signs, but this year we haven't put any up and we're still getting leads from them somehow. So there's a sign out there somewhere that hasn't been taken down yet. So that's kind of what made us think we just need to be more strategic about it. We went really heavy and really hard, 200 signs a week. So I think what we did is we oversaturated each area we put them in, and the cities got ticked at us, yanked them down. We got a few fines here and there. So we just kind of backed off for a little bit on that, but I think we're going to revamp using that. That's kind of the major ones. Really, we get a lot of our leads from just the online sources and our postcards, and hopefully this cold calling will help with that as well, help generate additional leads to go on appointments for.
Yeah, I'm really interested to hear your data on cold calling in a couple months. I'll definitely follow up on that with you specifically. One question: are you seeing any different in the quality of lead between the postcard mail you're sending out and the online traffic you're drawing to your site?
Yeah, our online leads are always better.
Yeah.
So we get a better conversion rate on those. We get a better profit margin on those. The way you've got to think about it is, postcard, you're sent out there, you're throwing fish lines into the water, right? So you're actively trying to get to them. With the online, they're actively coming to us. So it's like them walking into a bear trap. So that's kind of the way you got to think about it. And it's super competitive. So if you get an online lead, the faster you call that person, the better. Like if we can call them in 3 seconds, we would. Sometimes that's not always realistic, but the faster you call them, because basically what they're doing, right? They see a list of things that they search for online, and they're just clicking down that list. They clicked on us first. We call them, respond to them right away, set an appointment. Hey, I've done my job. I don't need to go to any more of these sites. So we try to do that. I mean, our fastest conversion is we had a person fill out a thing at 12 o'clock. We were out at his house by 1. We had the thing sold the next day. So, I mean, if you can move fast, that is a competitive advantage. Just having good systems and processes in place allows you to beat other people. And everyone has a unique strength, right? You know, the 1-2 person shop can be more maybe customer focused. We always try to be customer focused, but when we have 40 files at the title company, they can't all be the number one focus. Whereas if you have 1 or 2 deals, you can be a lot more customer oriented. So that could be your competitive advantage. For us, we have very elaborate systems and processes in place so we can be very quick and nimble to get to these leads. So if someone is our competitor and they're working a day job, we could have that thing wrapped up before they even had a chance to check their email.
Yeah, that's awesome. And yeah, the postcard versus like the PPC or paid traffic to your site, that's the analogy I always hear. It's the hunted versus the hunter. Like you're the hunter if you're sending out the direct mail, you're the hunted if you just have your site up there drawing traffic to it and stuff. And yeah, that's super powerful to it. An approach I've been hearing a lot, really, I guess the entire time I've been in the space. But if you have an online lead come in, obviously get on the phone with them as soon as possible. But just setting an appointment on that initial call, just so that they're not tempted to look at any other websites. Because I think on average, I've heard that the average lead that's submitting a web form on your site is going to go to 4 or 5 other sites too. So if you're able to call them, like you said, 3 seconds, that deal where you're literally at their house an hour later. If you're able to call them, introduce yourself, build rapport, establish credibility that you're buying properties, they may not even fill out other web forms. They say, okay, this guy's coming to my house in an hour. I don't need to fill out any other forms.
Yeah, especially if you sound professional and you give them that and they connect with you, right? That's part of the sales process. If you can build rapport and make them feel comfortable with you, explain your process to them, make them feel like you're not going to be that, never take no for an answer type of person, because that scares people off. But if you can build that, getting that trust, and they're like, okay, well, I feel like I have a qualified professional coming out. They don't need to go to 5 different other sites, because to be completely honest, we should all be in the same ballpark for price.
Yeah.
So it's if everyone's doing their job well, we should be in a pretty close range. It's now, who do you trust the most to perform? And what type of service level do you look for?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Those online leads too. I love having our members really get methodical and calculated with the autoresponders they send out. Like you can program those in InvestorFuse. So as someone fills out a web form on your site, name, property, contact information stuff, you can automatically send them back to your website to like a credibility page or a testimonial page or a this is how we buy properties page to establish credibility and get that satisfaction as soon as they press enter on their keyboard to submit that information. So that's awesome stuff.
Oh, that is sweet. I know in our follow-up sequencers, we have our testimonial page as the bottom part of our signature. So any automated email, they can always go look there. We've got like 10 videos up from people that were satisfied clients where they were willing to sit down and get video recorded. I mean, that's powerful when you have a real person talking about their experiences with your company.
Absolutely, man. I love hear that you guys are using that. On the follow-up sequencers, let's touch on those because I know we've been talking about this, the last couple months on and off here. You need to get credits and stuff, but we're talking about the postcard. Another thing with the cold calling or just like prospecting that list. I guess you could either like cold call them by regular iPhone, cell phone, where you're just calling one number at a time. You could use a software like a power dialer, like Mojo Dialer, where you can ring multiple numbers at one time. I want to hear your 2 cents on that. That'd be powerful stuff for everybody to hear. So you could do regular phone, a system like Mojo Dialer, Power Dialer, and then you can also send out slide broadcasts as prospecting, which is cool too. And then obviously what I want to touch on is the way higher response rate for slide broadcasts when you put those into your follow-up sequences. Because just talking here, like the postcard, you have an amazing response rate, 1 to 1.5%. The slide broadcast, I'm hearing the average is like 8 to 12% response rate, which is like crazy. So if you were to get that list and send them mail and get a 1 to 1.5 rate versus getting that list and either calling them on Mojo, multiple numbers at a time, or sending them all a slide broadcast, big difference in the response rate there. So I'd love to hear your opinion, how you're using Mojo and how you're using slide broadcast in the sequencer.
So I'll start with the sequencer first. I haven't actually been able to get that started yet. I have to do.
We'll get that.
Basically, Mike and I are getting ready to do our, I don't know if you've read Traction, but we're doing our annual meeting polls coming up. So been focused on preparing for that. But that is one of our things. How do we get more leads? How do we convert more leads? That's going to be a part of that process, is building out that follow-up sequencer to include more of the slide broadcast, because I think that is awesome. Right now, the way we have been doing it is awful. We take every lead and break it into smaller lists and then dump them all at once. And then our phones melt and then we can't manage them very well. So with this, we can definitely space out that a little bit better. So I like that idea a lot. Just has not risen to the top of my to-do list yet. As for Mojo, I like it a lot. I'm still kind of a novice at it, so I don't know all the ins and outs of it, but the fact that it lets you pop up Zillow right there, you can build in a script right there. Basically the way we're working it is we're leaving everything in Mojo until they accept us to come out and make an appointment with them, or if they give us a very specific motivating factor, then we add those leads to Podio, because I don't want to junk up our Podio leads with a bunch of people that we might have never communicated with ever, or take me off your list type of person, because we'll just hit, do not contact on Mojo, and that just removes them from the call list. So I'm a pretty big fan of it so far. I don't have a ton of experience with it yet, but it seems to be a very efficient tool. It can plow through 1,000 calls a day easy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy. So we'll definitely, me and you, on another note, we'll definitely put those audio files into your into your follow-up sequences. Really great way to beef those up. And then definitely want to follow up with you just to see how the cold calling's going. And, as you get more experience with Mojo, you and your team get more experience with Mojo. Definitely follow up there. What was I about to say? Oh, also the Mojo integration. I was going to say, this is like more so for me and you, but I'm not sure if you have it integrated in Mojo. We can set that up where as soon as you have a certain level of qualification for that lead or that prospect, we can set up a push from Mojo where you mark it, say, as hot, motivated, and it will automatically pull all the notes and contact information, create a seller lead in InvestorFuse. So we'll chat after this interview to make sure you have that set up too. That'll save a ton of time. And that's the thing too with time as you're doing this and as you're more as the operator. I love the methodical, high level thinking stuff. So just that example there, say it takes you 30 seconds to a minute to copy and paste all the different fields from Mojo into InvestorFuse. If you have that push set up, if that saves you 30 seconds every time you do it, and you're doing it, 100 times, that's I love the compound of how much time you're saving there. That's one thing with the automation and even our core values that Dan have instilled in all of us, because I worked with him in his wholesaling business before InvestorFuse. But time is so important, and working to get more time freedom and stepping away from the business, working more on the business, delegating everything out is just super powerful stuff for both your business and just quality of life, which is really what we're all after and probably what a lot of people get into real estate for, quality of life and time freedom.
Yeah, I would recommend a book if people are hesitant on different things of that nature, but it's called Procrastinate on Purpose by Rory Vaden. I think he also wrote Take the Stairs. I haven't read that one yet. But basically he has a funnel. It's called the focus funnel. But basically you follow a process. You get something, anything in the world that you have to do, that's a task, and then you try to do one thing, eliminate it. All right. Is this something that you can live without? If you can, get rid of it. It's out. You don't need to do it. If you can't and you have to do it, try and automate it and invest in something that can automate it for you. That way, if we can systematize something, let's get that thing so it's repeatable, done over and over and over again. Never takes our bandwidth again, our brain power, because even if it takes 30 seconds over and over again, not only is it time you're wasting, but you're switching tasks now. And that switch task, they say, can take up to 5 to 10 minutes to get back on focus. So if you're doing that 3 to 5 times an hour, you're not getting much productivity done in terms of focus, because focus is, I think, the best way to grow as a person, as a business, to get further down the road. So if you can take those things out of even out of your brain, then you don't have to worry about it again. The next phase of that funnel is to delegate. So can this task be done by somebody else? And if so, that's a lower pay rate than you, and not try and be condescending or anything like that way, but everyone has a value, right? And we want to push those tasks to the lowest possible value that we can. That way it gets the right attention. We don't want to push it lower, but we want to put it to the point where it makes the most sense for that value to be in. And all of us as business owners should hopefully be not doing too many of the lower level tasks, because it's not going to help us grow our business. And the last two parts are either you concentrate on it or you procrastinate on it. So if it's something that needs to be done now, you block off your time, you do that one thing. And if it's not, you figure out when the right time to do it is, and then it circles back through the top of the funnel, and you look at it again. Do you eliminate it, automate it, delegate it, or concentrate, or punt again? So it's a good book. It really helps you kind of get more on. It really focuses on that, that second quadrant in Think and Grow Rich, where it's unimportant. I mean, it's important, but not urgent, but also adds another element of how impactful is this going to be over time? Because, it could be it could be important, not super urgent, but now you want to look at the scales. What's going to have the most lasting effect? And bringing the CRM like InvestorFuse is huge, because now it might take a little bit of time to get this thing going. And there was a big learning curve, a little bit of pushback from our team, but now everybody is humming along and we know things are working, and they are being much more productive lately. We're getting more leads converted. We're using that follow-up sequencer. So that takes us off our task, and our leads are being managed by a robot.
Yeah, man, awesome stuff. And it sounds like your mindset, the books you've read, and your values and principles, definitely a great fit for InvestorFuse.
Well, thanks. Yeah, we were very happy with it.
Awesome, man. Well, we covered a ton. I'm gonna have to go back and just take bullet points, get all the quotes. I might sell a few book titles like 48 Units Without Meeting a Tenant by Mike Cowper. But yeah, man, we touched on a ton of stuff. I'm gonna go back for the show notes and everything and just timeline when we talked on different stuff, or mark that time down. But anything you'd want to say in closing here? Any advice? The power of being in seven-figure flipping. It seemed like that was a huge stepping stone for you, and even how you got your first rental going to like a meetup. It seems like that's where you've got a lot of traction and really took exponential growth in your business and business endeavors and everything with real estate.
Yeah, what I would say is if anyone's interested in getting deals here in Metro Detroit, you can sign up on our buyers list at webuyROI.com. Right now, we're just in Michigan, in the Metro Detroit area, Oakland, Macomb, and Wayne County. We don't invest in the city, so you won't see deals from the city of Detroit. There's other people I can put you in touch with if you're interested in that area. But we do have great flips. We've got a lot of rental opportunity for people, especially if you're on the coast where, you can't get any kind of rental income. There's a long-term wealth here for that portion of it. You might not see the appreciation, but the rents, you can be all into a house for $60,000 and get $900 to $1,200 a month rent. It's awesome. So that's an opportunity. If anyone's interested, you can also reach out to me, Mike.Cowper, Cowper, at webuyROI. I'm happy to talk and help with anybody. I've got a lot of help, so I always like to try and help other people as I can. And one of the things that I've always found, it's another quote, I'm kind of a quote junkie, but go as far as you can see and you'll see further. So, don't worry about steps 9, 10, and 11 if you haven't taken steps 1, 2, and 3 yet. Get as far as you go, and then you'll have new experiences. You'll be able to see the path clear as you get down that way. And always try to find a way to be in a room with people that are further down that path than you, so they can help tell you about the pitfalls and the traps and the things that you should avoid.
Absolutely, man. Great stuff. Great quotes. I'm going to have to go back and listen to that again. The one thing that we touched on with masterminding and networking with people too, it's so twofold, and it's become really clear to me why, like, something that helps me so much is you're not only learning the mechanical aspect of it, like how to evaluate a property, stuff like that, but I think it's the mental side, right? It's almost like you're giving yourself social proof and you're embedding the belief in your head that you can do something too. So if you want to have this successful business like Mike has, and you start surrounding yourself with people and just hearing people that have went through trials and tribulations, pain points, and gone through it, you're almost embedding in your head the belief that you can do it too. And I think that's like the most important thing. The mechanical stuff, it's not rocket science here. Like, you're not, going to pharmacy school, working for NASA, stuff like that. But it's really the belief. If you're able to stay consistent with that every day, have that belief, that motivation, which clearly you have, it looks like you've got a ton of that from the mastermind and everything. You're putting yourself in a good position to be successful, and you've clearly done that, and will continue to grow. So,
I completely agree, and that kind of reminded me of something. So, the first year of the 7-figure flipping group, we were the only group that made it to the $1 million. A lot of people got close and got better. This past year, we have over 20 that have gone to a 7-figure level in that group. So it's almost like the 4-minute mile, right? Once you see someone can do
I was just going to say that. Yeah, I was going to say that. I was like, I don't want to butcher this, but the guy that ran the 4-minute mile, then the next year, a ton more people did it. That's exactly what it is with that.
Yeah, I totally agree. If you can be around the people, and the mindset shift it's kind of amazing, right? Because it's unlikely you've got a core network in your local area as high level as the investors across the nation. So, try and put yourselves in the right rooms and find the right people, even if they are local. Find the people that are doing it the best and try to be around them the most.
Absolutely, man. Great nuggets. Thank you so much for hopping on. I'm not going to be surprised if you get some emails and some people signing up for your buyers list. The buyers list, again, was signing up at WeBuyROI.com. Is that correct?
Correct.
Awesome. We'll put that in notes. Mike, thank you so much. We'll touch base here shortly, too, just on your InvestorFuse workspace. Make sure that thing is humming, rocking and rolling with those follow-up sequences. And feel free to reach out to Mike. I will put his email in the description. Thank you so much, man. Much appreciated.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.